Hello everyone and welcome back. This is another Design Cuts weekly live workshop and I am thrilled to welcome back our very good friend, Mr. Nathan Brown. How are you, Nathan? Good to see you.
Good to see you.
I'm excited for this workshop. We were just chatting before we went live and Nathan did an unbelievably big, incredible update to his Master Watercolor pack recently, which is, as many of you know, one of the most popular digital watercolor kits of all time. This update really elevates it to the next level. So props to you, Nathan, for all the hard work that went into that. And I know today we're going to showcase some of those new brushes. We're also going to showcase a really, really incredible color wash technique. So if you aren't familiar with that technique, many of you may not be, then you're going to be in the incredible hands of Nathan, really trying to elevate your work here. So without further ado, Nathan, over to you. I'm super excited for this.
Yeah, cool. I'm super excited as well. So yeah, I did a big update to the Master Watercolor brush set, and I've done several updates over the years with that set. And as I continue to use it, I'm trying to think of new ways to, make it fresh and, always trying to mimic the things that I do with traditional watercolor, because that's my background, is traditional paint on paper, right? So I'm always trying to recreate the look and some of the experience of painting with real paints. So in this update, number one, I added Affinity and the brand new Photoshop edition, and it's all together in one pack. So if you buy the update, or if you buy the pack or you already had it, you get updated with the Photoshop version and the Affinity version. Photoshop was always on my radar, and it was always something I wanted to add to the pack and make it available for Photoshop. So I was finally able to do that. And I also added some new brushes. We're going to take a look at those in a sec. And then I also added some colored washes, some wash textures, and we're going to look at those real extensively and show you how all the different ways you can use those. All right.
Amazing. And to clarify for everyone in the comments, this is a free update. So if you already have the pack, you get all of this goodness, in your account. So enjoy, everyone.
Cool. All right. So first up, there is a new set of brushes that really were inspired by when I was creating the set for Photoshop. I got inspired to create this, what I call mixer brushes. And I added them to Procreate and added them to Affinity. And they're in this category. Like if you're at the top, they're under the brushes brush set collection. And if we start here, they're down just above the special effects right here. So here's special effects. The mixer brushes are right here. So it's this set here. Now, with this set, I wanted a way with pressure in the pen that you could basically like create a lot of random effects, because when painting washes and stuff, like there's just all this bit of randomness that occurs with watercolor. So I'm always looking for ways to create that randomness. Like not everything just gets painted with a brush on paper. Like there's a bit of mixing water and paint that just random things happen. And that's part of the beauty of watercolor and what makes it so fun. So for the digital brushes, I'm always looking for ways to recreate that bit of randomness. So if you can see with these brushes, these are primarily for painting washes. And as I change the pressure in the pen, you can see that it gets very heavy with paint or it gets very heavy with water, right? So you can go back in and you can like smudge and take out paint with pressure as though you're adding more water. Okay.
So to be clear, when you push harder, is that more water or more paint?
Each one is a little bit different. So with this particular one, as I push harder, I get more paint. As I lighten up the pressure, I get more water. There's also a little bit of color variation that happens. So with pressure, it gets more saturated and intense. And then with lighter pressure, it gets a little bit lighter. And there's just, like you can see from here, that down here, there's more red, and up here, there's more orange. And you can see that there's just a bit of color variation happening.
That looks incredible.
Yeah, this set is really fun to use. And since I created it, I've been using it a lot to paint my own washes and to paint shapes. It's just each one is a little bit different. This one's got more granulation, so it's not as intense, right? Clear this out. This one is a little bit softer and has more blooms in it. Look at a different color.
Okay, I
little
think
bit
this is the
softer
point
edge.
where I officially declare you a magician, Nathan, because these are some of the coolest digital watercolor brushes that I've ever
Yeah,
seen.
these are so fun to use because it's just so random, right? I mean, it's just like it's so beautiful, and all I'm doing is just like, you know, light pressure, hard pressure, light pressure, hard pressure, and it just creates a really cool effect. And they mix so well, you know, like I'm painting over each brush, and it's creating this nice like you can see this gray here towards the bottom where the red and this green are kind of mixing a little bit. And that would happen with real transparent watercolor. Like you would see that, right? Let's get a different color. Yeah, so each one has a little bit of a different effect, a little bit of a different edge. Some have like more of a hard, crisp edge, and some have a lighter edge. And this one's got more granulation.
And it's worth noting, I know you went very extensive in the Ultimate Brush Toolbox with watercolor, but because this pack is entirely focused around watercolor, it's many more watercolor.
It's massive.
It's even more in depth than the watercolor portion of the Ultimate Brush Toolbox.
Right. Yeah. So the Ultimate Brush Toolbox, the watercolor pack in that is like the essentials. You know, it's like everything you need to really get started in watercolor. Just like all the other, you know, there's a charcoal and oil and gouache and everything. That's just an essential set. Whereas this set is like, if watercolor's your thing, this is like a deep dive. Everything you want to do, everything that you need.
Cool.
So I've got a demo here. So I've got this apple that I painted with these brushes because yes, they're great for painting washes, but you can also use them, painting like a wash inside of a shape. And I'm going to show you how to do that. So I've got a group here, and I've got this mask shape, which is just the outline of my apple. And I went ahead and painted the shadows and the details. But we're just going to focus on just adding washes into the apple shape. All right, so if turning on alpha lock so that everything that I paint is going to be inside that white apple shape, right? I'm going to show you how fun and easy this is using these brushes. So you just get this really great, and I'm to get these different like edges, I'm lifting the brush up and setting it back down, or lifting the pen up and setting it back down.
I mean, even that already looks great, and you've done like a few brush strokes.
Right. Yeah, it's just, and I was doing this earlier, and I just went layer upon layer upon layer just because it's just kind of fun, right? You know, and of course the apple looks fine right now, right? But you just kind of keep going, and it's like, well, let me add a little bit of a orange, and then I think I added a bit of purple before, just to give it, put a little bit of red back in. It's just so fun to watch. Like, I'm not even, these are just random strokes, right? I'm not applying any sort of like real technique here. I'm just going random strokes. Let's try a dark red, change. Let's go try this one. I don't know about you guys, but this is like really satisfying to watch.
It is.
I'm not going to do this for 45 minutes. I promise.
I mean, you could. It's relaxing.
I could. I know. I could. Right. Yeah. So anyway, that's it. Really. I mean, there's and what's cool is, I use the same shape and I use the same details. Right. There's just a copy and paste of the details and the highlight and the stem and the shadow, and I use the same brushes, but they're both completely different. Right. I mean, they're just because it's so random. That would be, that's how it would be with traditional paints, right? You paint the same sketch and it might come out completely different because the paint and the water, the way they interact is just so random. Yeah.
Yeah. Stunning.
Cool. All right. So there's that. Let's take a look at another one.
A great comment from Bill here. He says, word of warning, make sure you set aside a chunk of time when going to use these brushes because you will lose track of time. They're so much fun to use.
Right. Yeah. just wait. Yeah, I'm about to show you another one here with the cat painting. That's like, you can just, yeah, I've done this a couple times with this particular painting, and like I just keep going and going and just looking at different options, and it's so fun. Okay, so I've got this cat painting, and the composition for this painting is really, well, primarily the focus. Let me get on a layer above. So the focal point is right here, right? The eyes and the nose. That's where the detail is, and that's where the sharpest edges are. So that's really the focus. And the overall composition of the painting is kind of this right here. Yeah. It's just kind of got that sort of shape overall. Now, as I add washes to this, I kind of want to keep that stuff in mind, like just for this particular painting, that's my focal point. And then my overall shape is that sort of triangle that we just looked at. Now, as I add washes to this, it's really easy to start to change the composition or to lose the focal point. But I'll show you how to kind of keep, because it's so easy just to like go nuts and kind of get out of hand, but how to try to keep that bit of composition. Okay, so I'm on a layer below the painting. Okay, and also, I'm just to note, I'm using a paper texture from the Ultimate Canvas Creator, and this is what the painting looks like without that texture. Okay, it's this layer right here. It's a layer group, and it's watercolor papers specifically for painting watercolor. So you can see what it does. You know, that's a big difference, right?
Yeah, huge. And they're in the pack, you said?
They are not in the pack. It's the Ultimate Canvas Creator.
Got it.
And
okay. Which is massively extensive.
Yes, there are some watercolor papers that come with the Master Watercolor set, and I'll show you one of those here in another painting in just a bit. All right. Okay, so I'm going to add some of these. Okay, so now from the beginning of this set, I wanted to add some way to get color variation and texture into this set, because that's such a huge part of watercolor, is having this variation and randomness in color, right? So I didn't want it to just be just some transparent ping files, or just, I wanted it to be something that I hand painted that was specifically for this purpose, right? And so I came up with this set of JPEG files. They're high res textures. They're hand painted, real watercolor on real watercolor paper. And you can apply them in so many different ways. And I'll show you right now what they do to a painting like this. So I've got them already all on my iPad. My initial goal was to do 12, right? Once I started painting them, I ended up with 50. Okay, so there's 50 of these included. Yeah, so they were just so much fun to paint, and I was just thinking of the color variations and the different types of textures and salt and brush strokes and splatters. It ended up being way more than what I intended it to be, but I think it's great because there's just so many things that you can do with these. They're so much fun to use. Having 50 it's really more of a benefit. Okay, so this is actually the hardest part in using these, is deciding which one to use. Okay, because there's so many, and you just kind of have to experiment and see. Like right now, over here on the third row, I'm just going to insert, this is wash number 9, but they're divided into brush strokes at the top, washes in the middle, and then down here towards the bottom are some splatters. Okay, so I'm going to use wash number 9 here. We're going to insert that. Okay, so right away, whoops, oh, did I lose it? Nope, there it is. Okay, so right away, it changes so much of the painting, right? Because we get these colors that were not there before, and it just adds.
What are you doing, Nathan, in terms of like blend modes and stuff?
There is no blend mode. All right now. Okay. We're going to get to that in a bit. This is just on a layer below the painting, right? So now if we remember, our focal point was there in the center, and there was a bit of highlight. So I'm going to bring that back. Okay, so I'm just going to erase out some of this middle part to just bring our highlight back in the cat's face. So what's cool about this is these are colors that I may not have thought about. Like I may not have painted this sort of like let's see if we can look here and get like this orange right here, and this sort of pink, and then there's sort of a blue over here. You got a purple. I might not have added those, like if I was just, you know, painting with brushes and just laying down color, I might not have come up with that specific combination, but I think it works really, really well. So you can also, I just erased. Now you can also, of course, you can smudge. Let's get on the right layer. You can use the smudge tool and kind of smudge just like you would any other layer or strokes that you laid down with a brush, to just kind of sort of change the way it looks. Now, this sort of changed our composition a little bit too, right? Because we've got, you know, we had this sort of shape. Now, this is what I meant to keep in mind is like, you know, now we've kind of got this. We've got this extra bit. So the composition kind of changed to more of that kind of thing because we added this bit of paint run down here. So it sort of changed the composition a little bit. So that's just something to keep in mind while you're
it's very symmetrical now because
right,
the ear shape is kind of mirrored by these
because you can see
strips.
Before, like yeah. So that's what it did. That's what it added with just a couple of clicks. Like it just added that bit of color and that bit of composition change. So let's try another one just so we can see what kind of effect it has. Okay. Again, the hardest part, right? Trying to decide which one to use, right? I think I'm going to try. You about to say something?
I was going to say, I don't want to impede your creative process.
No, please.
Would there be any potential during the session for the community to choose?
Absolutely, yeah.
Would that be okay?
Thinking the same thing. Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, so everyone watching, you can obviously see there's some letters below. Like you can see, you know, H_05, for example. Could you type in the live chat, everyone? What would you like to see us use? And we're trying to look for any favorites, or try and pick one at random, maybe.
Anyone have a preference?
Let us know.
Yeah.
We've got H14.
H14.
H16 is another
16,
one.
Okay.
H12.
12. Okay.
Chord 23. Oh, that's fun 23. With the green.
Okay. Cool.
I think everyone's got a different one.
See how it is.
Matt and our team said number 9, which looks pretty amazing as well.
Number 9. Okay.
But we can't pick Matt. We have to pick one of the community.
Yeah. Actually, number 9 was the one I just used. I just used number 9.
Oh, right. There you go.
Yeah.
Okay. 18. Someone 18? Just suggested that. How do you feel about that?
Yeah. You want to try 18?
Yeah. All
right. Let's look at it.
That looks fun.
Let's see what happens. Ooh. Interesting. Okay. So I'm going to move this around just a little bit and just kind of see what shakes out here. Okay. So if I move it up there, it kind of starts to add some shape to the ear. Put it down here, we get some shape towards the bottom.
Actually, here's the question, Nathan. Do you just pick at random and see what it does, or do you see them in advance of picking and kind of, you know, is there something that tells you what is going to be a good fit and what won't be?
Well, I mean, color is one thing that I'm kind of looking for, but I will show you guys how to change that in just a little bit. Again, it's just kind of, you know, I'm pretty familiar with them at this point because I've used them all quite a bit, but it's still, I still kind of don't know what's going to happen, you know, and that, but see, that's the whole point. That's part of it, because that's when you lay down some water on paper and you start adding paint to that water, you don't always know. You have a bit of controls, but not fully. Right, in traditional watercolors. So that's kind of the point of this, is to see, okay, I just wetted this whole painting and I'm putting in some paint and I'm just going to see what happens. And that's kind of the fun in using these. Okay, so this actually kind of changed the composition a little bit, I think. One thing that I would do here is, because my focal point was right here, this added some hard edge right here. I don't think it's necessarily a bad thing, but one thing that I might do is just kind of maybe smudge a little bit of that just so it brings the focus back to the face. You know, something more like that.
Mm-hmm.
You know, maybe that little spot right up there I might get rid of. And I'm just using the smudge brush to do that. I mean, you could use the eraser, but I just kind of like to blend with the smudge tool. I want to show you guys one other thing too, real quick with this one. And I think if I insert number, I think it's number 1. Let's see what that does. Yeah, okay. So now this obviously adds some really cool color. And one thing that I really like about this particular one, I'm not even going to move it around, but if you, this down here really lends to that original composition that we had, but obviously this up here does not. So I just want to see if I can get that into the ear right here. Just get that bit of color into the cat's ear. So now one thing that we could do would be to warp it, but then it starts to distort too much, right? I mean, you can certainly warp these to a small degree, but it starts to warp the whole thing, and I really don't want to do that.
It takes away from the realistic natural feel.
It starts to, yeah. I mean, you could warp a little bit and get away with it, but I think doing that much is too much. But if you use the liquefy tool, it becomes a lot better.
Bentai Creation says the cat is now a tiger.
For sure. Okay, so we get that
cool.
into the ear, and then I can just kind of smudge out that extra bit there.
There's actually this technique you see all the time in editorial and that kind of thing. Like often it's done very stylized. You'll get a kind of beautiful bit of line art, and then you'll get a wash that's much more abstract, kind of layered with it. Often you see it in fashion illustration and that kind of thing.
Right.
And I always love that style because you kind of get the finesse and the detail of the drawing, but then you get the abstract randomness of the swash, and the contrast between the two leads to a really beautiful composition always. Yeah,
I agree. One thing that I really love is like what you're talking about, like an advertising illustration, like in vintage movie posters and magazines and things like that, where you've got a really nice line work, but then you've got all this great color wash underneath it that really paints sort of it's a combination of like really fine draftsmanship and illustration with a really abstract color and wash that has a really cool effect. And that this does kind of have that kind of feel to it.
It's real like mixed media, I guess.
It's very mixed media. Yeah, for sure. And one thing that's cool, we were talking about colors earlier, is like I really like the red that added right here around the eye. That wasn't there before. Okay, so that's just bringing them in and just erasing, smudging, and warping, and using the liquefy to get the shapes and everything that we need. So if we take a look at another painting, I want to show you this one because I used them a little bit in a different way here. What I did was I combined several. Okay, and when you do that, you have to set the blend mode from normal, there's normal, to multiply, so that they become transparent, and then you can overlay them. So I'll show you what this painting looks like if I turn them all off. So there's not nearly as much going on, right? There's just the bird and a little bit of light washes and a little bit of line work. But then when we add these, you can see what happens. Like you can see all of there's some granulation going on in the back. There's a little bit of splatter, and there's some hard edges that are where the wash dried and then left a bit of a hard edge. It just completely transforms the painting, and it's so easy and quick to do. Again, the only hard part is just deciding which one to use and where to place it, but that's part of the fun.
It's like a party for your eyes for all the things that you just mentioned, because you got all the different colors, you got the different shades, you got the different value levels, you got the soft smudges, the splatters, the hard edges. Like I say, everything you just mentioned, you kind of take it all in at once, and your eyes just think to your brain, this is delightful.
Yeah. That's actually the new tagline for the Master Watercolor set is it's a party for your eyes. Yeah, that needs to go right on the cover.
It should do. Speaking of which, by the way, a bunch of people have been asking about the brushes during this session. If you missed
Yeah.
it, it is the shiny green button below this live stream right now. You can check out the brushes as well as the massive update that Nathan gave them recently.
Yeah. So I just want to take a look at this one real quick and just add a couple to it and just show you how I did it. And then I want to show you what, how choosing different washes, how much it just transforms the painting. Like if we compare it to that first one, just how much it just can completely change a painting. So I'm going to choose a couple just at random here. I'm going to go with number 8. Let's see what that does. Okay, it's more subtle. I'm going to change it to multiply. So we got a couple more underneath. Maybe let's try this. Maybe 21. It's more. The colors are more more gray, more subtle. Let's try that. Let's see. I'm changing that to multiply. Move it around just a little bit. Okay, let me add one more and see what that does. Let's go with. Let's try this 29.
The great thing with this, by the way, and I have done this kind of work before, certainly in Photoshop, it is so predicated on trial and error that if you drop something in and just think, I don't like it or it's not working, just delete it.
Yeah.
And try a different one.
Right. Yeah. In fact, I don't think I want to use this one. Just clear that one out. Try another one. Let's try this. If I move this up a little bit, maybe. Yeah. Okay, so there's that, right? Just combining a few. We didn't really change anything. We didn't erase anything. We didn't change the colors. We just added some in and set them to multiply so that they're transparent. And we could play with this a little bit. Yeah, super easy. We could play with that a little bit and end up with a very different composition. Like you can see the original painting and what we just did. And the composition is very different. Like you can see in the original, there's more focus around the head because all the washes kind of fall below the head, right? So if we use this one, we might want to erase or smudge some more around the head to bring the focus back in. But it's still got potential. It could still work. Like using these, we could still manipulate it a little bit and come up with a good final painting. But look how different it is. And it just took a few seconds, right? And it's got such real texture. That's what I love so much about it is, yeah, it's a digital painting, but the textures are so real because we've got that paper texture. We've got that granulation and that bit of splatter and randomness and color combination. And it just has a fantastic finishing look. Okay, so we got one more I want to show you real quick, and I'm going to show you another way to edit these. So usually when I go to paint something in watercolor, I'm thinking about like bears and lions and tigers and just like, wolves and like real masculine type, And so I need to change it up a little bit. And I asked my wife, I'm like, well, what's a good subject? And she said, well, farm animals. And I said, farm animals like what? And she goes, a llama with a flower in its mouth. I was, well, that's really specific. Like you've put some thought into this before. And I'm like, okay, well, a llama, first of all, I had to Google a llama because I couldn't remember what that was. And then, I found, I even found a llama reference with some grass in its mouth. And I thought, it would be really easy to put a flower on that. So I've got this llama with a flower in its mouth. Okay, so a little bit different than what I usually paint, but I really like it because this is a really strange looking animal. And the composition is kind of cool, right? Because we've got this, just this really like this, I mean, it's just this real, like a cylinder type rectangle composition.
This llama has some serious personality.
Yeah.
Looks a little bit like one of my granddads, actually.
Nice. It's the eyebrows, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So if I've got a little bit of wash painted in, like it's really just all on this layer. And I've got my darks and lights painted on these other layers here, but there's this wash layer underneath. And so if we add one of the wash textures to this, let's try number 19. Okay. Where'd it go? There it is. Okay. All right. So you can see how much that adds, just that little bit, right? And if I think we probably need to, we've got this bit right up here that's maybe competing with the ear. So I'm just going to smudge that out just a little bit, so there's no competing elements. And I think, like, really, you know, I think we could erase maybe a little bit to bring our highlight back if they're on the nose. But that's really it. I mean, I think this it lends to the composition, and it adds this nice bit of vertical flow. But
beautiful.
This one didn't really need anything, right? We just added it in, and it worked right off the bat. But what happens if you add one in and you like one color, but you don't like another, or maybe you don't like the colors at all? So let's try, let's try like this, maybe this number 23. This has got green and yellow. Like the yellow will probably work, but the green probably won't. Yeah, so we get this really kind of competing, like this color that just doesn't, like the composition still kind of works, but the colors don't really work as well. I think the yellow does, but maybe the blue should be more, maybe a purple. So I'm going to erase back our highlight there in the middle. And so what we can do is we can adjust the hue and saturation of the whole thing. But we're still getting this kind of like the yellow and the orange and the pink, that kind of works, but that green is changing. You know, maybe that purple begins to work, but we still kind of have this where the colors just aren't cooperating quite like they should. So let's go back out and let's see. We can do a hue and saturation, but instead of like the whole layer, we can use the pencil, and we can get a brush with maybe a softer edge. Like we'll try maybe one of these wash brushes. We use the bleeding edge wet wash, and we can just try to change just the blue and leave the yellow alone. So if I'm painting in, what I like to do is take the brightness way down so I can see what I'm painting, and just try to get some of that blue out of there, but we're going to leave the yellow maybe. So I'm going to take it back to 50. And then now we can just change it maybe more to purple.
Oh, that's pretty cool.
Make some fine adjustments here. So you can see how, like, editing these washes, like, you pretty much have like a real infinite possibilities for editing these. You know, like once you bring it in, it really becomes part of the painting, and you would just edit it like you would anything else. Yeah.
Yeah, stunning. This llama feels like it should be at a music festival or something. It's kind of like a hippie llama or something.
It is. Yeah, it's like a hippie llama. It's because he's got the flower in his mouth, right? Yeah. So now you might look at this. You might look at this way of painting and this real abstract and all these washes and stuff, and you might think, I don't really paint like big background washes like these. Like these, maybe they don't really apply to how you paint specifically. Maybe you paint more characters, you paint more like hard shapes or whatever, but they actually still can be applied to that style of painting. If we go back to our apple example, where we don't have any sort of these like abstract things going on. We've got more of like a defined shape. We can go back in and we can add one of these to a layer above. Let's see what happens. I'm going to try number 16. Kind of looks apple-like. We just size it and just add it there. Make a selection and invert it. Go back here. And I always try to do this, and I kind of mess it up. There's a 3-finger swipe. Oh, see, I can't do it. Oh, see, I can't do it. Let's try it again. Oh, There it goes. There it goes. Wait.
Hmm.
Oh, I can't do it. I can't do it. Hold on.
Come on.
For some reason, that's so hard for me to do. Okay. And then we can set this to multiply, right? And we get all those great granulation textures.
Now it starts to feel like an oil painting almost.
It does have it's starting to layer up and look a little bit like an oil painting. You're right. And we can do, do another to adjust the colors, get something maybe like that. Now we got this nice purple there in the bit over there to the left. So these can still be applied when you're doing like hard edge shapes and more of like a real, like a tighter style. You can still use these to get that nice watercolor granulation and watercolor texture and that random bit of color effects that watercolor just tends to have. And you didn't have to like paint it in manually. You just get it within, just a couple clicks.
It looks amazing.
Thank you so much. Cool.
Are you happy if we do some community questions, Nathan?
Please, absolutely.
That was incredible, though, and I love the different variety of examples that you've shared. I think a really good overview and just proof that this technique really is versatile. It lends itself to all kinds of compositions.
Yes.
And yeah, I think it's amazing. And these are amazing as well. To confirm, are these in the Master Watercolor pack now?
They are, yes.
Amazing.
They're in
part of that massive update. Yeah.
Ready to roll.
Very, very cool. Again, just a reminder, if you want to grab this pack, it is the button just below this live stream. They are the Master Watercolor Brushes. If you already own them, you got this ginormous update for free because Nathan is incredibly generous and kind. But yeah, they really are. I think they're the best watercolor pack on the planet right now. No exaggeration. It is just enormous. So yeah, with that said, we have some community questions. Let me dig into these.
Please.
Janet was saying, where are the JPEGs? They're just in a subfolder, right? Called washes.
Yes, they're in I think there's a resource folder, and they should be in there in a folder called washes. And then you can just bring that folder over to your iPad or wherever you keep your resources so that you can pull them quickly.
Mm-hmm. A few people as well asking how you created them. So were these analog paint, traditional paint?
Yeah, I painted all.
Yeah.
I painted all of them by hand, just using good quality paper and good quality paints, and I had a tremendous amount of fun. That's why I ended up with 50. It was supposed to be 12. Mm-hmm. Yeah, just because they were incredibly fun to create and paint, and they're incredibly fun to use, and that was the whole point.
Nothing wrong with getting carried away.
Nothing wrong with getting carried away.
And good for the community. All the design cutters get to benefit from even more lovely washes now. So Ben Tai Creations asks, Nathan, do you play with the gradient map tool in Procreate to ever change the colors of a wash?
I do. I've used the gradient map tool a bit in Procreate. I find I like it better in Photoshop. So I don't use it that often in Procreate. It's something about it just doesn't seem quite as handy to me in Procreate as it is in Photoshop. But yes, I have used it.
Mm-hmm. Amazing. And Sam asks, and welcome back, Sam. It's great to see you. One of our favorite community members always. Says, Nathan, how do you come up with such amazing updates and packs?
Yeah, so I'm always painting and drawing traditional. So I mean, I'm always and every day, and that's really where the inspiration for all of the digital stuff comes from. Is because I do something in watercolor, and I think, I used a different water spray bottle, and it created this different sort of random effect pattern in this spray or wash or splatter, and I'm like, I've got to add that to the pack. Like, I've got to be able to paint with that on the iPad or in Photoshop because it added such a cool effect. I'm always looking for stuff like that, and I'm always I got a book, an out of print watercolor book, and this woman was painting with rocks and watercolor. Like, she was laying rocks on the paper and letting the water kind of created this random effect. I'm like, how wild is that? Just things like that you're always experimenting with and always just trying to do, just to see what happens. And that really is what inspires all of this. And then just a love of traditional media and just all the things that can be done, and just trying to carry that over to digital is just a lot of fun to me. I'm always thinking about it, you know.
And I love that you are, because I think so many people don't have that traditional background, and they are somewhat constrained because they've only known digital.
Sure.
But I think it really adds so much depth and intrigue to everything that you do. It's like a superpower. We had a couple of people ask, what brushes do you use either when you're erasing parts of the washes or smudging?
So I try it, you know, when I'm doing a painting, I have this brush technique that I talk about in the course, where I try to limit myself. Like the pack includes like 160 brushes or something like that, but I don't use 160 brushes in one painting. That would be a nightmare. But what I do is I try to you know, use maybe 6 to 8 brushes, and I will use the different brush types, because if you look at the main brush set, it's divided into these brush types. Like there's wet texture brushes, there's dry brushes, and flat brushes, and so on. So I'll try to use like 1 or 2 brushes of these different brush types, and I try to limit myself. Like I'm trying, because if you try to use a lot, your focus becomes more on brush selection than it does the painting. So you kind of want to limit that or avoid that. And so a lot of times what I will do is I will either pull a smudge brush, because there's a smudge brush category here for the smudge tool, or I will just smudge with the brush that I'm painting with, or I will erase with the brush that I'm painting with. And it really just, you know, it depends on if I'm looking for a hard edge or a soft edge. I mean, with the smudge tool, it doesn't matter as much, but with the eraser tool, it certainly does. So I just, you know, a lot of times I will just switch over and just erase with the brush that I'm painting with, because it will typically have a similar edge. You know, it's going to have the same edge as the brush I'm painting with. So that's what I'll do a lot. If I'm not doing that, I will choose a smudge brush from the smudge tool category.
Perfect. Thank you for clarifying. Bren asks, is it possible to have the Apple shape file?
Say it again.
Is it possible to have the Apple shape file? I
don't
know
the Apple shape file. Sure. Yeah. Oh, you mean like to make it available for download?
I guess so.
Yeah, I mean, that's really kind of up to you guys. I mean, I can certainly make it available somewhere. Maybe if you guys can direct me where to put that, maybe on the community or someplace that it would be available.
Yeah. I think the community hub would be a perfect place. And cool. I know Bren's very active there. Linda asked about, are they easy to get into Photoshop? They're just PNGs and JPEGs, I believe, right? So yeah,
they're JPEG. So it's the same process. You just have them in a folder, and you could just import them. You can just open them up and copy and paste them, or you can just drag them over into your Photoshop document from a folder.
Amazing. And Richard asked about any resources to kind of learn composition better. I don't know if you have any favorites, but I would say that behind the scenes here at DC, we're working on a top secret new product. And part of that product goes very deep into compositions. So Richard and everyone, stay tuned for that. Hopefully,
stay tuned.
Coming in June, and Nathan may or may not be part of that top secret project, which is pretty fun.
Yeah, very cool.
Awesome.
I like secrets.
Nathan, thank you again. Honestly, it's always just mesmerizing to watch you work and learn from you. Community, please give a massive virtual round of applause for Nathan. Everyone, as ever, we recommend hop on over to the community hub. I'm sure the wonderful Fran can link that up in the chat. That is where you can share any work that you've created during the session. So if you've been following along or you're inspired to go and create something after the session, share it in the hub. And it's a great place where you can get feedback. You can get people loving your work in there. It's just an incredible place full of really friendly fellow members. So definitely check it out. And I know, Nathan, you're in there sometimes as well. I recommend, like, if you ever do a session, drop in there a day or two later, because there's always people that have created stuff based on what you've taught, which is
cool.
Really fun.
I'll look for that. Yeah.
Cool.
Awesome.
All right. Thank you so much, everyone. Nathan, I will catch up soon as well, my friend.
Yes. Thank you so much. Appreciate it.
Yeah. Thanks. Bye, everyone.